Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, please share the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast with a coffee lover, with a friend. Help spread the show. It's how we grow. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch every episode, and give us a good rating and review while you're at it. Thank you so much. Today's episode is a very interesting one, and we have show favorite, recurring regular guest, Dr. Coffee on the line. How you doing, Dr. Coffee?
Hey, Jordan, it's another day above ground living the dream.
Yeah, buddy. I got my coffee right here. We're rocking and rolling. Now, today we're talking about, this is a really interesting subject. I guess you could say other coffee consumables. You know, when we think about coffee, we think about the end product of the brewed Joe. But there's so much more that goes into the coffee plant and all the stages of the coffee bean, and we're going to kind of explore that today. Dr. Coffee, where do you want to begin helping us understand all parts of the incredible plant that is coffee?
So, as you know, Jordan, I live and die coffee. I mean, I am trying to figure out how to breathe coffee next, But I keep looking at coffee as different things you can do with coffee because I'm so enamored with coffee. Mm-hmm. And a couple of them really floated my boat recently. So I'd like to start with coffee flower.
Ooh, yes, absolutely. So the coffee tree produces fruit, and the pit of that fruit is what we know as the bean, but it also flowers. I believe before the fruit, I believe it flowers out. And you're saying that you can utilize these flowers or consume these flowers?
No, the flower I'm talking about is Flower, which is a very funny difference between the Flower.
Get out of here. Coffee flower?
Yeah, flower. So, in fact, one day my wife said to me, you know, it was just our anniversary and you didn't bring me anything. And I said, well, what would you have liked? She goes, well, you should have brought me my favorite flowers. And I said, okay. And she said, you don't even know what my favorite flower is. And I said, Pillsbury All-Purpose. So that's what you're talking about there with the difference between Flour and Flower. And we're talking about the Flour.
I've never heard
Did
of
you
this.
like that joke?
I did, absolutely. You brought us some almond flour and some of the instant. No, that's crazy because, again, I've heard of the coffee flower flowering on the tree, but you're saying coffee flower. I've never heard of this in my life. You got to tell me about this.
Oh, it's really pretty neat. And there's a lot of, undercurrent of controversy. This is where your listeners, our listeners, get the inside scoop before it becomes really, really popular. So this is Dr. Coffee knowing about something before it really hits the road, Jack.
Wow.
So coffee flower is a new ingredient that's out there and is starting to get a lot of attention. And let me just start off by telling all the listeners, it isn't really a flower, Flour, and even though it's made from the coffee plant, it doesn't taste anything like coffee.
Oh. But is it substitutable technically?
It is suitable for using. It's considered more as a spice than a flower.
I see what you're saying.
And it tastes much more like cocoa than it does coffee.
Whoa. Do you know how this, what's the difference between ground coffee and coffee flour, how it's made?
Yeah, so what happens is that you grow a coffee plant in which I've sent out some seeds, and I'm really waiting to hear back from people how their coffee trees are going. So all you listeners out there, let me know how your coffee tree is growing. So when the coffee plant does something, it produces this bud with a seed in the inside of what's called the fruit. The fruit which we call in the lingam the coffee cherry.
Right.
So when they harvest the coffee beans, traditionally the coffee cherry, the fruit, is discarded. So like every year, billions of pounds of coffee fruit are thrown out.
Right. And I've talked to farmers. They say the reason that is it spoils very quickly, and there's not a big demand for it. Some ferment it back into inputs, but you're right, it gets discarded as waste a lot of the time.
Right. So there have been two movements with success of doing something with the coffee cherry. One of them is in the liquid drink department.
Oh.
So you have companies like Bai, B-A-I.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Bai?
It sounds familiar. I can't picture the logo off the top of my head, but I think I may have.
You find it in the grocery store. You find it in big box stores. I know even Costco and BJ's sell it. And it's a drink, and the drink is a water drink that's made with coffee cherry.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
So it's BAI antioxidant, and they have a bunch of different flavors. But it uses the coffee cherry as part of it.
Okay.
The other thing that's been happening with the coffee cherry is that it's been dried out and then ground and turned into a flour. So what's really exciting about this, now there's some good in there, there's some bad. The bad is that there's some lies going on about how valuable it is as far as a nutrient dense product. There's some exaggerations going on. But the good of it is, even without the exaggerations, it's still a great product.
Wow.
So you dry this stuff up, and when you do, you can use it as an additive to baking. And it does have potassium. It does have iron. In fact, one of the claims is that it has more iron than fresh spinach.
Wow.
And more protein than kale, and more potassium than a banana.
Jeez.
And more fiber than whole wheat.
So it's actually like nutritious. These are macronutrients.
Yeah, so it's also got a little bit of calcium, a little bit of vitamin A, but the iron is the big star because it provides about 10 to 20% of your daily need for iron.
Wow.
And what's nice about that is that if you take an iron pill because you're iron deficient, it has some bad effects on your gut. It tends to constipate people. It tends to make their stool real dark. So, we don't have a good accomplishment of people taking iron if they need it. But when you use coffee flour, you're getting a good dose of iron. And it doesn't cause any of the things with the bowel like taking an iron pill does. It's also got good fiber in it. There are exaggerations. So it says that it's got more than spinach, but the truth is that if you dry spinach, if you dry it so that you're actually dehydrating the spinach and then you compare weight to weight, spinach is a much better nutrient-dense product than the coffee flour. But if you're using the watery spinach, then it's not. So what I'm trying to say is you can't look at what some of the advertisements say and take them as 100%.
Sure. And I know exactly
you follow
what you
me?
mean. I totally follow you on that. A plate of raw spinach salad is a whole task to consume. But if you were to toss that into a little steamer on a pan with some garlic, it shrinks down into a few bites. That's why one of the reasons why spinach is so incredible as an iron source is, you're right. If it's shrunk down a little bit, you can really consume quite a lot of it. So I can see what you mean there.
Yeah, to put it into math for you, 100 grams of coffee flour has more iron than 100 grams of spinach. But if you dehydrate the spinach, then they have the same amount of iron per gram.
That makes sense. But I mean, as
But
an additional supplement, still as an additional input, still a good option.
oh, absolutely. And the same thing goes for kale. When you look at, they measure protein in kale against the coffee flour, and coffee flour has more protein. But kale is not known for its protein. So, I'm never actually sure why they're using these statistics except to sell a product. But they don't need to do that. It's a great product. And it's great also because, one, it's using a part of the coffee that just gets thrown out.
Totally.
And two, so that's helping all these small farmers make even more of a living, which a lot of, from being down in the southern regions at the coffee plantations, which you've had that wonderful trip, right?
Absolutely, man. It's massive, not just from the waste perspective. Like, you should just care about waste in general, but also, like you said, making so many people's lives easier and enabling these people to have a better life and employ more people. I've seen it firsthand. Interestingly, they, like I said, they did some fermenting, like some composting and compost teas with their waste products, but I got to taste a coffee cherry when it was ripe off the tree. They're delicious. They taste like almost like a lychee or something. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but that kind of weird, kind of squishy pear type fruit.
Yep.
The coffee cherry, I feel, is so underrated. It's good to see it being utilized for something different that's more stable than that very spoilable but very delicious kind of lychee state that it naturally comes in.
Yeah, the other two things I want to remind or reinstate about the coffee cherry is when it's dried into coffee flour, it does have a very nice taste, almost like cocoa. It's got good fiber in it, so it's healthy for your gut. And it's got low caffeine. It's got 60 milligrams of caffeine per tablespoon of coffee flour. And that's compared to, 200 milligrams of caffeine in an 8-ounce brewed coffee. So it's really a great product. People should try it. They should try adding it to baking. We make challahs for Friday night for Sabbath.
Nice.
So we're going to add some coffee flour to challah and see how that is. So next time I'm on, I'll report how the coffee flour challah was.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that, man. I love that take. Man, coffee flour, top of my list as far as interest. I put coffee grounds on my steak. I wonder how the coffee flour would do on the steak.
So while we're on the subject of coffee grounds, which one day I'm going to do a section with you just on coffee grounds, because I've been using it for shaving. I've been using it as a face rub. I found a new one, and this one is my favorite yet. When I make my coffee, I take the grounds and I put it in this dish with some cheesecloth over it, and I sit it in the refrigerator, and we use it as the refrigerant anti-smell. We get rid of the odors in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And what's real nice about that is the next day I just dump it out and put the fresh new coffees. And I don't dump it into the trash. I dump it into the composting pile.
Yeah, buddy.
And it's wonderful as a compost. So I get double bang for the buck from my spent coffee grounds.
Oh, man, I love that. First the fridge, cutting out that Arm & Hammer, saving a couple bucks, and then right into the compost for the nitrogen and for the plant material that'll decompose. Exactly. Love it, man. Love it.
That's funny that you mentioned Arm & Hammer, because before the show I sat there going, what could I call this? Could I call it, fist and neck? Can I call it back and leg?
Leg and screw gun. Leg and level.
Exactly. The next thing I wanted to do, talking about coffee, is we've been using green coffee extract for weight loss.
Green coffee extract?
Yeah, green coffee extract.
Wow.
And we've done a whole series of patients now, adding green coffee extract to their diet, where they take it in the morning, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback.
Wow. Appetite suppressant type of thing?
Appetite suppressant, speeds up metabolism a bit. People say that they feel more alert, that it helps concentration, that they don't get any kind of buzz where they feel jittery from green coffee extract.
Wow.
And that everybody has said that it has been helpful with weight loss. Yeah. And if you look at the active ingredient, it's chlorogenic acid, is an antioxidant, and it really helps how the body responds to sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a nice study that showed a decrease in diabetes in people that use chlorogenic acid. And so I'm really hot on getting people on this green coffee extract. I think it really helps people with their weight control.
Wow. So I'm interested in how this stuff is made. Again, the cherries are picked off the tree. If it's a kind of boutique plantation, they hand pick these cherries. They have a machine that de-pits them, and then they dry them out. But when they come out, they're not dark like a peach pit. They're green.
Right.
They're actually really beautiful. If you've seen pictures of green coffee, quite a stunning product before they end up throwing it in the roaster and toasting it to that delicious golden brown. Do you know how this green coffee extract is made? If it's made with the fresh green coffee, or if it's the dried green coffee? Do you have any insight into how it's made?
I don't.
I am interested to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure as to whether they're just grinding up the green beans into real fine. The problem is you can't use high temperature for chlorogenic acid. So I know, since it's high in chlorogenic acid, that it's not coming after high heating the green beans. And if you high heated them anyway, you'd roast the beans and then you wouldn't have green coffee. So I'm not sure if they take the green coffee beans and just grind them really fine and put them in capsules, or if there's some extraction process on top of that. But I can definitely find out by the next time we get on.
When you're giving people this extract, is it a pill or is it like a liquid?
No, it's capsules.
It's capsules. I'm looking up how green coffee extract is made, and it seems like a water extract is possible, which really surprises me. Wow, I'm gonna have to look into this off air, and this is gonna be a whole exploration here. Huh.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. On our next one, we've got a real interesting subject on the next one, which has to do with a different extract of coffee that I'm not going to tell anybody.
Okay, that's a big teaser, because I'm seeing it looks like the Swiss water process itself kind of requires or creates or something green coffee extract. It's a water process. Really interesting. So there's a little tease for you guys coming up on the next one. But yeah, interesting, man. It doesn't surprise me. It helps people lose weight. I'm sure there's a ton of good benefits from it. And I'm going to have to add that to my personal protocol, the green coffee extract. Why not?
I think it works great. I like the feeling from it. I like what the patients are saying to us.
Love hearing that, man. Hey, I hear there's one more kind of off the beaten path of coffee, but not too far. I hear there's one more beverage topic you'd like to cover today?
Out of all the things I've ever lost, I miss my mind the most. Brewed cocoa.
Yeah, buddy. You brought it up.
Sorry, I was thinking about coffee. So I have another, and I think you're actually the guy who created this. I think you're set some point to interview him. But, you've got another bean besides coffee beans. You've got the cocoa bean.
Right.
And, we use cocoa beans to make chocolate from.
Mm-hmm.
So you take the cocoa bean and you make chocolate and you add sugar to it and you make hot chocolate, and all that's well and good. But what happens if you treated the cocoa bean the same way you treat the coffee bean? So what happens if you had small farms growing it and you took that bean and made sure there was no mold on it and made sure that it was roasted properly, and then you ground it down and then you ran brewed water through it or espresso water steam through it? What would happen if you did that?
Is it delicious?
And this nice guy did it and found out that it's delicious.
Man.
And it really is. It doesn't taste like chocolate, but it tastes like something else.
Wow.
It's really interesting. It does not have as much caffeine as coffee. It is rich in flavonoids. It does have a whole bunch of antioxidant compounds to it.
Right.
It does have chemicals in it that can enhance your mood.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the calories or the fat that chocolate does, so that a cup of brewed cocoa is, I think, like 10 calories per cup. So it's, much of nothing. And it has a chemical in it that's really great. Have you heard of theobromine?
Oh, I think that you might have brought this up in the past, but please enlighten us.
So theobromine is a central nervous stimulant like caffeine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different kind of caffeine. It's more slowly absorbed into the bloodstream. Its effects are milder. The common experience from people using theobromine is that they feel focused but calm. And so what would happen if you started brewing both coffee and cocoa, brewed cacao, together?
Oh, man, that's what I was just thinking. That sounds like because you're right, there's so many similarities there between the cocoa bean, and people have done the studies on chocolate, like you said, but it's got to come from inside the bean, from the antioxidant compounds that people tout, just like coffee. There's caffeine in there, just like coffee. I've heard the studies on mood, like you said. Fascinating stuff. And do you know anyone who's doing a coffee cocoa blend that treats it like this?
Yes, it's a new company started by Dr. Coffee and Jordan.
That's exactly right, man.
It's something we really should talk to Purity about exploring.
I agree. That sounds delicious. And have you tried this pure brewed cocoa yourself yet? How does it taste compared to coffee?
I have, and it's not that it tastes compared to coffee. That's like saying how does tea compare to coffee. It really is a drink in and of its own. It is very pleasant. Yeah, it's very pleasant. It's got this waft of hint of drinking chocolate, but it's a waft. It's as I said, a hint. It's not like drinking a cup of hot cocoa, but it's on the same kind of level as that.
Would you compare it to
very pleasant,
like those raw cacao type? Does it have more of that flavor for where it's less sweet and more like savory and earthy?
It is. That's just how it is. I'd like to give a shout out to the company.
Please.
The company is called Choffy, CHOFFY.
Choffy.
CHOFFY.com. I spoke to the owner, Jason, very nice guy, has really, done a lot of study on the cocoa plant and really wants to see it make its mark. And you know what? When I think you're talking about coffee, tea, adding the cocoa plant to those three so that you now have coffee, tea, and cocoa, brewed cocoa, I think is going to be a hit.
Wow.
So let's see if Dr. Coffee is 2 for 1 today with coffee flour and brewed cocoa.
Man, I love that. I absolutely love that. And you're right, that's like the plant medicine trifecta as far as disease prevention and longevity. I love that. That's super interesting.
So I started working, just so you know, on adding on to our health and coffee book to add a section on brewed cocoa. So hopefully you'll see that in the near month.
I love it, man. You're always working. Thank you, Dr. Coffee, for bringing all this to the table today, man. This was an awesome episode.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you all. Stay tuned. Stay subscribed. This is Dr. Coffee and Jordan River signing off saying have an extraordinary day. We'll see you next time on the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast.